Hello, welcome to Dimensional Tarot. This is the combination of Enneagram and Tarot card analysis. This will be part of a reoccurring series of content focused on this esoteric cross-sectioning. This will be a dive into the system and to all the parts before we start drilling into more key areas as time goes on. They should be coming out once or twice a month. It just depends on how much content I create, but as for now, this is the beginning. Oh, sorry. This is Dimensional Tarot. Well, I clicked a little bit sooner than I expected. Anyway, this is a 9-card spread. This is just a basic Dimensional Tarot card spread that you've been seeing on the channel. Each key represents a point on the Enneagram spread as well as the card spread itself. I have some animations here. There we go. So that's the Enneagram from the Enneagram Institute. And each point here connects to a point that is a card. So we're going to go ahead and look at our Enneagram Basics. So there's 9 points as we've seen. So now we know what the cards correspond to, but each one is individual. So type 9 is the peacemaker, self-effacing, receptive, reassuring, agreeable, complacent. They desire maintaining their own stability and peace of mind. They fear loss, separation, or annihilation. They'll often sacrifice themselves or the definition of themselves. They can feel lost. They sit atop the Enneagram spread itself. But so they are the most malleable. They embody all aspects of ourselves. When you take the Enneagram test, you'll see that you are a mixture of the 9 types and that you are one of the 9 types. In fact, when you bring balance to all 9 types, you are said to be seeing through the eyes of God. And the peacemaker crowns our spread because that's what we should be aiming to be. They're actually the most popular Enneagram type. So there's just, I think, a lot of loving, gentle people in the world. Now, the next is the reformer. Reformers are principled, purposeful, self-controlled, and perfectionistic. These people are virtuous, balanced, have integrity. They never want to be bad. They're kind of Pope-like. They often are missionary-like people. They can be part of the Peace Corps, those kinds of people. Next, we have the helper, generous, demonstrative, people-pleasing, fear being unloved or unwanted. These people can have issues surrounding codependency, but they're the ones who are, serving food routinely at the soup kitchen too, as well. They work kind of like the reformer, except they come from a different space, and you'll see as we dive more into Enneagram theory what I'm saying by that. They come from more of a feeling space, and the reformer comes from more of this instinctual area. Anyway, the next point is achiever, or card 3, when we come back to the Dimensional Tarot spread. But these are results-driven, image-oriented, and conscious people. They're politicians. They can have issues surrounding ego and mistaking power and ego. They can be misguided for a very long time and never see outside of that construct. As with the peacemaker, you'll see when we have all 9 points, they are at the center point here of a triad, and we'll come back to this. So there's something special to the peacemaker, the achiever, and the loyalist that we'll be coming back to. All right, so the next type is the individualist. These are super fun. They're sensitive, dramatic, self-absorbed, temperamental, and expressive. These are the artists that line our lives and our world, and they have made themselves known. They fear having their identity lost in the shuffle, and they definitely desire to make themselves known, to show the world their intensity, which they have vibrantly. The next type is our fun investigator. I like to think of them as the mind of the Enneagram. They are perceptive, innovative, secretive, and isolated. They're the ones staying up till midnight, eating Skittles, drinking soda pop, and programming. They are your weirdest but most loved nerd friend. They fear in being incapable or useless, but they just really love how to know how things work. And friends who dominate in this type are definitely your nerdiest friends. But you're this type too. You are all 9 points. It's just sometimes you favor one or you will favor some over others. Kind of nature versus nurture thing. That's a big old nerd fight within the Enneagram community. Anyway, so next we have our loyalist. These are engaging, responsible, suspicious, but anxious people. They can sometimes be damned because they are so loyal that they'll stay in situations that no longer benefit them and do not help them because they just believe that it can get better when sometimes it might not. So there's some intensity to them that is subtle but engaging. As stated here, they're engaging, responsible. Their basic desire and security is that they have the support, so they can kind of, like the peacemaker, sacrifice an aspect of themselves in order to meet that malleability. Enthusiasts, these are the fun. And if you look, we do have them as balance. The reformer brings balance to the artist melodrama of the artist, individualist, and the enthusiast, who is, just think of them as every rave person ever. They are blowing the whistle, they are spinning the glow-in-the-dark stick. That's that squirrel part of you. They're spontaneous, as stated here, versatile, scattered, enthusiastic about anything that may catch their attention. They desire their happiness, satisfaction, and fulfillment, and they dislike and fear and being deprived or trapped in pain. And I think for the enthusiast, the pandemic is completely unbearable and has been unbearable in these. And when the enthusiast becomes unhealthy, and this will be part 2, going into levels of healthiness and levels of development, but we will touch on it briefly later on, is that they can go down to the artist, they can go down to the investigator, they can move along to the artist. So it's interesting for the enthusiast right now, is what I will say. Next, we have the challenger. These are very, you know a challenger. These are strong types, confrontational, willful, decisive. Trying to think of Roosevelt was a challenger. 99% sure Roosevelt was a challenger. Determined their alone life course. They fear being seen as vulnerable or letting that vulnerability be all that they are seen as, because vulnerability was taken from them when they were very young, and so they had to turn to power and strength instead of vulnerability. So it's kind of almost like just a very strong character, and it's not by choice either. It's been mostly a circumstance that's forced these people to become strong. Anyway, next we have our instinctual centers. So you'll see them kind of breaking up and lighting up. So you have the challenger, the peacemaker, and the reformer. They make up the anger and instinctual triad. Next you have the helper, the achiever, and the individualist. They make up the shame but feelings triad. So this can be an aspect of things that they deal with that are a struggle. So the next would be the investigator, the loyalist, and the enthusiast with the fear and thinking triad. So as you move in Enneagram and dimensional tarot theory around, then you'll see, as we go from the shames and feelings to the anger and instinctual energies, how it carries, and that cooling and changing in process here. All right, next we're going to jump into dimensional tarot theory and Enneagram theory combined. So taking all that we just learned, kind of briefly in our last slide and combining it on top of dimensional tarot. So the first aspect of this is the Hexad shape, which is the one that is void of the triangle, so just that shape that you see, the internal part. When I said that the Peacemaker, Loyalist, and Achiever were special, they're going to be withheld for our analysis right now. And there's actually two patterns here when you're just doing a basic dimensional tarot spread that you're reading from. So the first shape is our Hexad shape here, made with the 4, 1, 7, 5, 8, and 2 cards. I'm going to show you that pattern more in depth right now. So the first shape that we go through is the Individualist to the Reformer. In our next video, I will be going through the wings and what it means to go from the Individualist to the Reformer, but just for the brevity of this video, that this is just you move from 4 to 1. You next move from 1 to 7, so our Reformer to our Enthusiast. Next you go Enthusiast to Investigator, Investigator to Challenger, and then Challenger to Helper. The process then repeats itself where the Helper will go to the Individualist goes to the Helper. The Individualist goes to the Reformer again, and that's where this process begins to repeat itself with the Hexad shape on dimensional tarot in Enneagram theory. So Peacemakers, Reformers, Peacemakers, Achievers, and Loyalists kind of don't play as well with those in the Hexad shape, and it's not a bad thing. It's just they're at the crux, they're at these center points, so they're just slightly different people. Next we have our Integrative Triangle. So this is just our center point. I meant to say that while looking at that last slide. Anyway, we next have our Integrative Triangle, so just going through that center point. So you go Peacemaker to Achiever, Achiever to Loyalist, Loyalist to Peacemaker, and then this cycle just repeats itself again. This is something I'm going to briefly touch on, but it's not, again, going to be something that we go into much depth on. But each Enneagram point, so when we get back to looking at the dimensional tarot spread, maybe I can point this out, but each card on either side is a wing, and they just have influential elements, and each Enneagram actually has 2 Enneagram types. And it actually is further subdivided. So the Challenger has one of 2 wings, and then each of those wings actually has 3 subtypes each. So there's a multitude of Challengers that exist just within the Challenger element. Just as there's subconscious elements of every Myers-Briggs. So there's just that kind of some difference and approaches for Enneagram and other types of Myers-Briggs theory, psychological theory, and the perspective of whether or not there are levels of development and how people evolve and change over time. Can you become a Challenger or a Helper from a Challenger? And do you stay in that type? And if you stayed in that type long enough, are you now that type? There's a certain malleability to it, and I think it overlays well with the tarot. Anyway, so there are each wings, and each wing actually has an individual name. So there's like 18 different names on top of just the 9. So that you get to learn. Anyway, for each of those, the social, sexual, and self-preserving subtypes. The social subtypes are obviously just more socially engaged. They're more gregarious. They're more out there. The sexual or one-to-one, they thrive more on intimate relationships and helping to build intimate relationships. They're just best taking care of those that are just closer to them. Self-preserving subtypes just take care of really themselves and those around them, and they're selective about those that they allow around them. Last are the levels of development, healthy, average, and unhealthy. Each type kind of has some patterning where they slide down the Enneagram. So no one self-destructs the way the reformer will self-destruct. No one, a challenger will self-destruct in a different way than the investigator will. Their patterns are all completely different as they ring themselves around this system, in their patterns, in their subtypes, in their wings. Now, there's two patterns inlaid into doing traditional dimensional tarot theory, and then there are two ways to read it. One being that way that we just discussed, and another being the process Enneagram, where we start at the 9 card, but we just go in a circle. The 9 is also a 0, so it is the initiation point as well as the ending point. And this is again something we're going to be coming back to in the second video, where I dive more into meatier aspects of dimensional tarot and Enneagram theory combining together, and more of Susan Rhodes' work, which is just immense. If you aren't able to stick with me through this whole series, please look into Susan Rhodes' work. It's immense, and it's what it has inspired this entire Kits and Caboodle production that you're seeing. Anyway, how I do also the process dimensional spread is I'll take like a Lenormand or another tarot deck, and we'll lay down the initial 9 cards, but then you put the other 9 cards in between each of those connecting points, and you're able to read a different story in it as you go along. And you'll see maybe connecting energies, especially if you use a different tarot deck. You can pull multiple, for me I pulled multiple major arcanas, and you can kind of see how the changes want to take place. There's a lot of flexibility to the system as well. So you have your basic 9 card spread. For me, I'll do an integrative card spread where I take and expand on the peacemaker, the achiever, and the loyalist. It's kind of key to do that because they are those key crux points to the anger instinctual centers, to the feeling and shame center, and to the thinking and fear centers for each of those instinctual variants. So you're kind of able to see what elements are impacting the wings of either, and that's how you can kind of do a quicker but more intense analysis. And then next, when you clarify all 9 cards, past, present, future, for all 9, it's called the full dimensional spread. And that is a longer reading. That ends up taking more 45 minutes. And those are kind of what I have based the extendeds to be, but just so you can get a picture representation of how big the spread is and what it ends up looking like. And then finally, just to retouch on the process dimensional Enneagram spread, you can toss that on top of the full dimensional reading and just get an amazingly powerful reading. I could go on and on about this, but I wanted to keep this first video kind of short, kind of engaging for you all, because it can be a lot just to step into, and there's just going to be like at least 2 more videos just to get through kind of some of the basic stuff, and then I was thinking of doing like a multiple part series diving into each type. So 1 video for investigator, 1 video for helper, achiever, so on and so forth. To learn about your type and take the Enneagram Personality Test, you can do so through the Enneagram Institute. They have kind of some of the best resources for it. The test is paid for, like $12 to $15, or you can take it through Truidity or some other online platform for free, but I do suggest taking it straight from the Enneagram Institute because I just feel like they have the most knowledgeable results. You also receive a packet, and I mean a thick packet of information, and it is just very resourceful and helpful for you. I also recommend additional resources by Susan Rhodes, The Fool's Excellent Adventure, and The Integral Enneagram. Anything written by her, practically, she has inspired this whole thing. Her work is just amazing, so I dorked out pretty hard, enough to make this whole channel. So good job. Anyway, also, if you want to learn more about Enneagram theory. The Wisdom of the Enneagram is just a really good starter place. Don Richard Russo and Russ Hudson kind of have helped form and found the Enneagram Institute, actually, and they helped have been helping push Enneagram theory into more of a modern mainstream appeal in the Northern America. All right, so if you have any other questions or you're looking for more information, please visit pastelpath.com. I don't know if all the forms work, but there is an article and that works. So this is a fun operation and it's bound to get better, but thank you guys for sticking around. I hope this video was able to help you understand more about what dimensional tarot is, how it works, why I'm doing this. Maybe that wasn't as clear, but we'll get to that. And I'll see you guys in the next video.